Good morning, everybody, and welcome into Hog Hoops Live, episode number 9. I am your host, Curtis Wilkerson. You can find me alongside Trey Biddy and Danny West on the team over at HawgSports.com. Arkansas versus Texas A&M this weekend has been postponed. Unfortunate, but we still had plenty to talk about. Between the Hogs winning what was one of the strangest games I've ever seen on Tuesday night, Muss has gone viral for a number of reasons. A Razorback is going to the Olympics, and now we get to look ahead to Kentucky. Should be fun. We'll review the Hogs' resume. We'll take a peek at next year's squad, potentially get to your questions and comments. No more time to waste. Let's dive right into it. Once again, welcome in to Hog Hoops Live. All right. Before we start, always a reminder, all the ways that you can watch or listen to the show. Like our Hog Sports page here on Facebook, you can subscribe to our Hog Hoops Live YouTube page. Go back and check out all the videos after they're posted. You can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, same place that you listen to Hog Sports Live with Trey on a weekly basis. Make sure you throw us a like, a 5-star review, leave a comment. All those things are greatly appreciated. I got to be honest with you. I mean, if you're not subscribed to us yet at HawgSports.com, I'm starting to get a little worried about you. We just finished up a great promo, but there's still every single reason to hop on and join us. Type in HawgSports.com. Just hop on the page right now. Give it a scroll. Take a look at it. All the stories that we have put up. Nobody covers National Signing Day like Danny West. It's incredible yesterday. Trey Biddy has been all over these schedule changes that have taken place with football, the coaching staff moves. He's been out ahead of all that. I like to think I'm bringing a little bit of heat with basketball, and hey, the baseball previews are starting to roll out for all you fans of the Diamond Hogs. Come join us. Come be a part of the family. See what we have to offer. I promise you'll be happy that you did. Okay, let me get all this stuff out of here. All right. Really, before we dive too much into this basketball stuff, I do want to mention and just give a big shout out to Arkansas Associate Head Coach David Patrick. Really cool honor for him. He's been named to the coaching staff as an assistant for the Australian national team for the Tokyo Olympics this summer. That's really cool. They've got a good shot at coming home with a medal. You know, Australia is ranked 3rd in the world. For those of you that pay attention to that type of basketball, they did really well in the FIBA World Cup in 2019. They beat the United States. Pretty cool. He came home with a medal. I mean, we're still all about Team USA, right? So maybe it's a silver or a bronze, but still. But very cool for David Patrick. He's going to be coaching several guys that he recruited to college and coached. You think about guys like Ben Simmons, Matthew Dellavedova, Patty Mills. All those guys are going to be represented on the team, all guys that he has a long-standing relationship. It's very cool. It says a lot about the talent that's over there in Australia, and David Patrick has tapped into that pipeline, and it's already showing. Big junior college transfer of Colma Wine coming in, Australian native. Very good. David Patrick, he started at Arkansas literally about the exact same time that I started with HawgSports, so I like to think we have that in common, but great guy, really welcoming and accommodating, genuine. He's doing a hell of a job. And he stepped in with Muss out against Abilene Christian and led the Razorbacks to one of their better wins of the non-conference slate. So really excited for him. We planned on doing this show yesterday, and I promised that, most of the time we're going to do these the day after the midweek. I know I made it a point to tell everybody, hey, we're gonna do the show on Wednesday next week. Well, we're doing it today, for a couple of reasons. One, we were pretty busy yesterday. I mean, we did have a press conference with David Patrick to talk about his Olympic deal that he's got going on. We had the news that broke about the schedule changes for football, so we had a press conference dealing with that. But the main reason is kind of had an idea that this Texas A&M game against Arkansas here in Fayetteville on the weekend might not be happening, right? With A&M having to postpone their game against Vanderbilt, which was scheduled for last night, they went on pause. I definitely want to jump on here and preview a game that wasn't going to happen, and now we know, so we can move on to Kentucky. So I think we'll have a more quality show by waiting a day. Before we move on to Kentucky, though, let's talk about this Mississippi State game just for a few minutes. That was a weird one. I mean, hey, listen, it wasn't pretty. To be honest, it's probably about as ugly as it gets. But Arkansas, hey, they come away with a 61-45 win over the Bulldogs, extend that SEC winning streak to 4 games. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. You love to see it. The start, I think we need to forget about that one. Okay, I mean, you almost can't get off to a worse start than Arkansas did. I think they were 1 for their first 17 or something from the field. They're kicking the ball all over the floor again. And it's just like, here we go, right? I thought we were past this. They went almost 10 minutes without making a shot. All they had was a free throw on a 10-minute span. It was from about the 18-minute mark to the 8-minute mark. You know, Desi Sills goes down with an injury there, scary injury. It sounds like he's going to be okay, which is good. Musk gets ticked off about it. He gets a tech, and then all of a sudden you're down 16-3 in your own building, wondering like, what the hell is going on here. I mean, it was rough, but luckily the defense was really good for Arkansas. I thought they had a great game plan going into that, and it was good enough to keep them within striking distance until the lid finally came off the rim, and it did eventually. You know, Arkansas did close the half on, I think it was a 25-6 or 26-6 run. You know, Moses Moody, Devo Davis sparked them. J.D. Notae came off the bench and had a good first half, which is rare for him. He's usually a second half guy, right? But he came in, did a good job. So, you know, after such a rough start, Arkansas goes into the half leading 28-22, and you're thinking, okay, cool. I don't know what the deal is with those slow starts. You know, they mix up the starting lineup quite a bit, try to find guys to spark it, find the right combinations. They were so good in non-conference play, getting off to good starts and burying teams early. And it seems like they've been starting really slow since then, since the turn of the year. So we'll see. I to be honest, I do think there were 2 things that contributed a little bit to that on Tuesday against the Bulldogs. One, Arkansas's tired, man. I mean, they were coming off 2 short turnarounds against 2 really physical teams and physical games. If you think about Ole Miss and Oklahoma State, kind of looked like they had some heavy legs early, and if you do, that's why, you know, a lot of times shots won't fall. They did get a second wind and had that stretch really from about the 8-minute mark of the first half until about the 8-minute mark of the second half. Then I thought they looked tired down the stretch. Now, they had built up enough of a lead at that point to be able to coast a little bit, which is good. You know, kind of take the air out of the ball like Musselman likes to do and milk the clock and play the possession game. It was a good time to do it because they were a little fatigued, I think, down the stretch. Also, Mississippi State, man, they're huge. I mean, they're limited offensively after their 2 key guards, Molinar and Stewart. I think you could tell by the 45 points that they scored. But they've got some grown men out there, and that matters defensively. They wear you down. They grind on you. It took a little while to figure that out. You had that 6-point lead going into halftime, and Arkansas came out hot. They extended it out to 15. You're thinking, all right, cool, cruise control time, baby. Got it in the bag. Mississippi State started making some shots. They put a run on them. All of a sudden, you got like 9 minutes left, and it's 42-37, 5-point game. And Mississippi State's got some momentum. And like I said, you kind of see the legs start to turn on Arkansas a little bit. They just looked tired. And I was like, man, I hope they don't run out of gas here. Don't worry about it. Connor Vanover took over, okay? The big fella comes out of the timeout. They call a timeout. They're up 5. Boom, 7-0 run, personal 7-0 run. Back-to-back dunks, which you love to see. Hey, for everybody saying he's not aggressive, well, there you go. Pick and rolls. Hammers a couple right there at the basket. You love it. Then he drills a 3. All of a sudden, Arkansas extends their lead to 12 thanks to that run, and then they're able to coast. So good job putting the game away. Very nice job. You like to see that from Connor. I get it. He had kind of a rough game with Oklahoma State in terms of physicality and things like that, and we're not going to beat a dead horse here. We know that that's an issue for him, but I think that he proved, you know, not necessarily that he is a banger or, you know, the most physical guy in the world, but he's willing to mix it up, and he can play with some toughness, and I thought he did that against Mississippi State. Again, this is the biggest lineup in the SEC. They run 6'10", 6'11" guys at you, not just the starters, but coming off the bench, and they're all big fellows, right? 240, 250 plus. He finished the night with 13 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals, 2 assists. I think that's your MVP. And we talk about, his defense at times. I mean, the man he was guarding to do, 2 points, 1 rebound. Pretty good job. Pretty good job. Some good things that you see there. I mean, Arkansas comes out and they really dominated on the glass against, like I said, a really big team. Obviously, Mississippi State's tough on the boards. It's good stuff. You out-rebound them overall, I think by double digits there. You doubled them up on offensive rebounds. You think that was an emphasis for Eric Musselman? I mean, that's one of the things he's gone viral for in the last few days. Rebounding was such a heavy emphasis that the man literally plastered signs that said rebounding, defensive rebounding, all over the locker room, all over the practice gym. They're pinning them on players' cars. Okay, so I think the guy's got the message there. Pretty funny. It's effective. You mentioned Molinar and Stewart, who are the two guys who came in for Mississippi State. They're averaging 35 points per game combined. Really their only offense. They combined for 14 points and 8 turnovers in that game. So again, Arkansas did a great job. They started throwing that trap out there again. That's just their thing. It's no longer a gimmick. That's their half-court defense. Getting Justin Smith involved in that trap and getting the ball out of the playmaker's hands. So far, it's worked for them. Mississippi State turned it over 26 times, which is a ton, and that became 25 points on the other end for Arkansas. That's the difference in the game right there. Arkansas didn't necessarily hang on to it that well. I mean, they turned it over 17 times, but that only turned into 4 points in transition for Mississippi State. So a huge difference there in the points off turnovers. Again, it wasn't pretty, but a win is a win is a win, right? You got to stack them up. That's 4 in a row. This group is starting to show that they can win games in multiple ways. I know you had a blip at Oklahoma State, but you played well there, and Oklahoma State's a good team. But Arkansas can speed you up and have success. They can grind out a slugfest. They proved that against Ole Miss. They proved it against Mississippi State. They can come back from big deficits. They've shown that now. They can blow you out. Ask Georgia. Okay, so those are some positive signs. Another interesting thing that went, a little bit viral. I didn't see this initially because I was at the game, so I wasn't watching on television, but there was a kind of an awkward exchange, I guess, on the SEC network broadcast after the game. So, Damian Fishback, prior to the interview with Muss, he was kind of off on a tangent about how Arkansas needs to improve and get quite a bit better, which is a fair assessment. I think we can all agree with that. I mean, that was an ugly game. You still did your job, right, and came out with a 16-point win. But they're not a finished product. Okay? But I guess Muss already had the headset on, and he heard that. So then in the interview, they basically ask him about the game, and he says something along the lines of, I guess, according to your network, we need to get a lot better, even though we won by double digits. So I think it was overblown a little bit. It was in jest, okay? I think it was kind of a soft or a playful jab, but it was calculated. Man, some people took off with that. Some were happy with the way he kind of took up for his team and thought it was funny. Some were calling him, thin-skinned or whatever. Listen, I'm all for it. Right? We've had the cliche, the coach speak, the non-emotion, but Muss is unique. He doesn't hide his emotions. He wears them on his sleeve. We know that. He's opinionated. He's up when the team is winning. He's down when they're losing. And to me, that shows you how much he cares. But I loved it the other day. Right? I mean, we all loved it when Sam Pittman, remember, he threw a little shade at Ole Miss about Hudson Clark. Right? And they even made a GIF out of it. Let's keep that same energy from us when he's passionate about his team. And it's funny because I saw the exact same thing that they did for him with a GIF the other day. So, good stuff. Moving ahead now, I do think that Arkansas should have beaten Texas A&M if that game would have happened this weekend. I'm torn on how I feel about it. On one hand, and we'll talk about where Arkansas stands right now, which is a pretty good position, but you'd like to get that extra win on the record. But they'll make it up. Okay, it's probably going to happen the week after the regular season. It's kind of a built-in time period. So Arkansas wraps up at South Carolina on March 2nd, and the SEC tournament isn't scheduled to start until the 10th. So you got time to get that game back, which is good. I know a lot of people have, tweeted and commented things like that about, let's call up Gonzaga and get them on the schedule. They're open on Saturday. Well, that'd be cool, but Arkansas has already played their allotment of non-conference games. They're maxed out, and they have every intention of making up this game with A&M. And assuming nothing else changes over the course of the rest of the regular season, they will. They will be able to do that. On the other hand, I do think the rest comes at a good time. Like I said, Arkansas looked tired. They were a little worn down against Mississippi State. They were going to have an extra day anyway because the midweek was on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. Now they get a full week. I think that's going to be beneficial in the long run. Trust me, Arkansas wants to play. They wish they were playing on Saturday. I wish they were playing on Saturday. I was looking forward to go cover it. But they're also beat up. And this gives some guys who've been kind of going through this up and down, this peaks and valleys with these injuries on, let me rest in between games and then play and kind of re-aggravate things. And they're just going through this cycle. Well, now they have a chance to really heal up and get back close to full health. You think about Justin Smith. I mean, after the Oklahoma State game, he talked about it, how it's been difficult for him. Yeah, he's been playing well, but he hasn't been able to practice. He gives it his all in the games, and he's sore, swollen, things like that. He takes it easy in between games. He misses practice. Well, what does that mean? It means he's missing scouting report. He's not able to walk through the opponent's plays, so it takes him more time to get caught up to speed with the game plan, and it impacts conditioning. He was sucking air out there more than anybody on Tuesday night. Jalen Williams, he had that knee-to-knee collision with Cade Cunningham. I was actually surprised that he was able to play against Mississippi State. I think it was 9 or 10 minutes that he did. That was pretty impressive. That's a painful injury. It's nothing structurally wrong, which is good, but that hurts, and he's swollen up, and it's really painful. Now he's got a full week to recover. That's going to be behind him for the Kentucky game. That's good because you're going to need him in that game. You think about Sills, it sounds like that was a stinger, and those are scary. And if you've ever had one of those, I mean, your whole arm goes numb, you don't know what's going on. Could have been a lot worse. That was a scary fall, but sounds like he was available maybe under an emergency scenario there in the second half. They didn't have to use him. Now he's got a week to heal up. Good. Moses Moody, we didn't even know about this, but he kind of had a freak injury at practice in between the Oklahoma State and Mississippi State games. Turned an ankle on a rebounding drill, a box-out drill, and they didn't even know if he was going to be available until game day. He grinds it out and plays 38 minutes. I mean, it was good because you got a lot of production out of some of these guys that were banged up. Smith gave you a double-double. Moses gave you, 13 and 7. So that was good to see. But now you rest up for a week. You should see a more healthy, fast, energetic bunch next week. And they're going to need to be that way because playing at Kentucky and at Missouri in 1 week, that's a huge stretch. It's a huge challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity. Man, getting into Kentucky, though, this is not the Kentucky team that we're used to seeing, is it? They really struggled through non-conference play. What were they, 1-6 or whatever at one point? And you're still kind of thinking, all right, they do this from time to time. They're going to figure it out in SEC play. And then they started fairly strong in SEC play. But, man, they've really been struggling lately. They've won a few games, but 5-11 overall. I can't fathom how that's even possible with the type of talent they have. on that roster. 5-11, Kentucky. 4-5 in SEC play. They do play defense, okay, pretty well for the most part. They're long and athletic, but they just have not been able to really click on the offensive end. And they continue to find ways to lose games as opposed to winning them. Happened last night. If anybody watched that game against Missouri last night, they were down big. They made a good rally. They looked good for a stretch against Missouri. They cut it down all the way to, I think, 3, and then they folded up the last 4 minutes. Turnovers, bad shots, didn't execute, and they lost down the stretch. They're capable. You know that from the talent that they have. I mean, they've got some nice wins. They blew Florida out. They blew LSU out. It's still a team that's full of McDonald's All-Americans, and you're going to their place. It's not going to be an easy game or an easy win for Arkansas. I think there's almost a stigma when it comes to this Arkansas-Kentucky game, and the Hogs need to get over that hump next week. It's a hell of an opportunity to do it. Okay? I don't think there's many times where you could say that Arkansas is going into Rupp Arena and should win. But I do think that's the case now. And hopefully we see that. I mean, talked about some of the good wins that they have. I mean, they barely beat Vanderbilt, though. Lost to Bama twice. No shame in that. Lost to Georgia. Some of those non-conference losses were head-scratchers. They have a hard time scoring the basketball. They really do. It's crazy. You look up and down. I mean, B.J. Boston, 5-star. Terrence Clark, 5-star. He's been out with injury. I don't know what's going on with him. Cal talked about it last night after the game, said something along the lines of, it's been 5 weeks and all your tests and MRIs have come back clean. You're still limping around. I don't know if he's saying that he's not hurt, or I'm not sure what's going on there, but they've been without him. That's hurt. You got Olivier Sarr, the big transfer that everyone was high on. That was kind of the game changer, right? Because people weren't sure about Kentucky for a while because they had so much turnover, more turnover than they normally do on the roster. But then they add an experienced grad transfer like Olivier Sarr, and everybody thought that would kind of send them over the top. It hasn't. Davion Mintz, Creighton transfer. I mean, more 5-star guys you go down here. Devin Askew, Isaiah Jackson, Lance Ware. It's a talented roster. They just haven't figured it out yet. Averaging 67 points per game. That's wild. That is wild for a Kentucky team. Only giving up 69. Like I said, they'll play a little bit of defense. They're only shooting 41.8% from the field and 30% from 3 as a team. Those are not good numbers. They're okay on the glass. Assist to turnover, they're really struggling. I mean, they have 183 assists and 242 turnovers so far on the season. Crazy. Big time opportunity for Arkansas. They need to go in there and get it done. Because they're in a good spot, the Razorbacks. They really are. It's crazy how split everyone is on. Well, I guess it's not crazy, but there's kind of a split on how everyone views this team right now. Because on one hand, you can look at it and say, well, they've handled their business and kind of beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and look at where they're at right now. And then the other hand, people can look and say, well, but who have they beat? And they've lost the games to all the really good teams that they played. And both of those things can be true. Okay. But, if you recall after the Alabama game a couple weeks ago when it felt like the sky was falling, we did point to this next stretch of games as being so critical, right? Most of them were home games, a little bit lighter in terms of the competition, an opportunity for Arkansas to rack up wins, and they've done that. So 4-1 since that Alabama game, which is good. All 4 of those wins have come in SEC play, which is huge. You'd like to have that one at Oklahoma State. It was a quad 1 opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But to reel off those 4 SEC wins is big. And because if you take a look at the SEC standings right now, Arkansas sits at 6-4. They are in a tie for 3rd place with Florida and LSU. So I guess LSU technically has that tiebreaker right now, but they're struggling, and you get them in your building with a healthy Justin Smith in a couple weeks. I think I like Arkansas in that game. Okay? You get Florida, who you're also tied with in third place, coming to your building. Missouri's only ahead of you by percentage points. They're sitting in second place right now, and you get them next weekend. If you don't think Arkansas is going to be fired up for that one after the way they played the first time around, you're crazy. So opportunities are there. Right now, you're sitting in a spot where you're in line for that double bye in the SEC tournament. And you're not really in a spot where you have to pass a bunch of people. You just have to hold steady. Alabama obviously running off with things, but, I understand big picture, and we'll talk about that in a second in terms of March Madness, NCAA tournament, and everything. But looking at these SEC standings, they're in a great, great spot. If Arkansas finishes third in the SEC, they're going dancing. I don't care what the final record is. If they're able to do that, they're going to be in a good spot. It just so happens this is a year where you have one team in Alabama who's dominant at 10-0, and most everyone else is kind of hovering, a game or two above or a game or two below 500. Very interesting. A lot of basketball left to be played. And I think considering you didn't have Justin Smith through that stretch that you struggled, you really have to be happy with where you're at. But like I said, despite where you're at in the SEC, it seemed to be slipping with the NCAA tournament projections. And I think the last time I checked Lenardi's updates, they were, Arkansas was in the play-in games. They're at the 11 or 12 seed. Starting to see some more projections that don't include the Razorbacks. I saw where they were left out of Andy Katz's new bracket yesterday. Why is that the case? We know they need to beat a good team, a quality quad one opponent. Well, you've got the opportunities, and we've been saying it. The opportunities are ahead of you. Missouri, Florida, LSU, Alabama, all left on the schedule. All of those except Missouri are at home, too, by the way. One of those will go a long way. You win two of them, you're in a great spot. We know that. But I think you have to. Because a lot of times, maybe you are in a situation where you don't have that signature win, but that you go into the SEC tournament and you get it, right? Or make a little run. Well, you can't bank on that this year. I mean, we're a month away from the SEC tournament. We don't even know if it's going to happen, right? There's been a lot of talk about that. Are they going to cancel those? Are they going to shorten it? Are the teams who are already secured for March Madness going to opt out and not take the risk? I've heard some coaches talk about that. So you can't bank on that. You need to rack up those quality wins now. Again, got the opportunity, they just have to do it. I think if they do, all of a sudden, those people who have the doubts and the concerns about the team are going to be feeling a lot better. Like we've said before, the analytics still love them. Number 30 in the net, 26 in KenPom, high on ESPN BPI, high in the Sagarin ratings. Not too many teams who have the type of analytical ratings that the Razorbacks do find themselves on the outside looking in when it's all said and done. And they just got to handle their business. The latest BPI projections, I think, have them finishing 19-8 and 11-7 in SEC play. If you get to that mark, I think you're in. I really do. Especially if one or two of those wins comes in that 4-game stretch that we talked about. We'll see. Been getting a lot of questions about next year. And, next year's roster. How's it project? What's it going to look like? It's hard to say right now, but, based on assumptions, some people are concerned about what next year might look like. If you think about the possibility of losing 3 seniors in Justin Smith, Jalen Tate, Vance Jackson, and then also Moses Moody, who probably is going to go pro. And I think the last mock draft I saw had him going number 12 in the first round. So, I get it. If we assume that happens, and those guys go, then returning, you would have Desi Sills as a senior, Devo Davis, KK Robinson, hopefully fully healthy, JD Notae. That's a lot of combo guards right there. And then Jalen Williams, Connor Vanover, and Ethan Henderson coming back inside. You probably have Bebe Iola back from his ACL tear. I don't know necessarily what to expect out of him. And then the additions, you add Chance Moore, who was a bit of a wild card, I thought, as an incoming freshman, just because he was so highly rated initially, and then he battled through some injuries and saw a big drop. He's having a really, really good senior season at McEachern in Georgia. Really looking good. I like his frame. I like that I've seen some more consistency from him from the perimeter. I like his motor that he's been playing with this year. So maybe he can come in and give you a boost right away. We'll see. But definitely looking a lot better as a prospect. I'd be anxious to see if he sees a bump in his rating when the next update comes out. You'll have Kamani Johnson, the Little Rock transfer. Thought we might get him this year. We still haven't heard anything on that waiver. Shocking, I know. But, another guy who can give you some physicality and some rebounding, adds a dimension that you don't have. And then Cole Mawine, who we spoke about earlier, the David Patrick signee that's coming in, athletic junior college guy, 6'9", can shoot it, rebound a little bit. I don't know that he necessarily fills that role of a big physical banger that everybody's clamoring for, but certainly from an athleticism standpoint, he fills a need there. But, if you look at that roster on paper, I see a team that's probably about equal to, or maybe not quite as good on paper as this year's team. But here's the deal. This is not going to be the finished product, right? I mean, we know that there's going to be at least one scholarship available. We have that now. Likely two if Moses Moody does decide to go to the NBA draft. And then honestly, depending on how this year finishes up, it wouldn't be a surprise if another spot or two opens up as well. Transfers happen. And I don't have any inside information that someone's out the door or anything like that, but it's just the law of averages. It happens every year. Don't be surprised to see that if it happens. But transfer portal season is going to be a lot of fun. Be a little bit of pressure on Muss to hit. Right? You don't have a miss if you only got a couple, because I do think this team is going to need a couple key things. Maybe you look at a true ball handling point guard. Could be KK, but I'm not sure you can bet on that just yet, because of the injury, and he didn't get the development and the experience that you wanted to see. Now, hopefully, he's fully healthy for the spring and summer. He comes in, he's ready to roll. He's absolutely talented enough. But do you get some insurance just in case? I don't know. I think they'd benefit from a go-to type scoring threat on the wing. I'm talking a go-to guy, somebody that can go get you a bucket. And that's hard to find in the transfer portal, but there's several teams that have done it. Louisville's one that stands out to me. Texas Tech, who went out and got Mac McClung. That's rolling for them. Arkansas would benefit from having that guy. Okay? And then maybe someone who could fit the system, but still provide a little bit more from the strength and physicality standpoint. We've talked about it in the past. So, I mean, can you go out and get all three of those things? I don't know. That'd be awesome if they did. Maybe two or three. And then you got to remember, I mean, there's always the possibility that those seniors could elect to return. I think it's a little more unlikely for that kind of thing to happen in basketball as opposed to, say, college football, where Arkansas has seen a lot of those guys choose to come back, just because there's more opportunities to make money playing the game. Right? Smith, Tate, Jackson, those guys could go overseas and make money if they didn't get drafted or wind up in the G League. It's all about what they want to do. All about what they want to do. I'd be surprised if any of them came back, but you never know. I would not 100% rule that out, for sure. Okay. Let's see if we got a few questions and comments here. Roman Burnside says, how about them Hogs? Yeah, how about them? 14-5, 6-4, SEC play. Down to the final month, you're in a good spot. We'll see how it ends up. Matt Bounce says, what up, Curtis? What up, man? How's it going? Nick Headley says, thanks for the great content. Appreciate that. Like I said, if you're not already subscribed to HawgSports.com, if you just go to the website right now and give it a scroll and see some of the things that we have posted. I mean, the amount of content we have is incredible right now. It really is. And I think that'd be enough for you to just sign up on the spot. Give it a shot. Go ahead. I really think you'd like it. Matt Bounce says, what's with these Texas teams canceling games with us? First TCU with the bowl game, now A&M. Starting to not like that state much. Yeah. Is this going to become a trend? No, it's unfortunate. You know, it really is. It's been interesting. Things have been happening to that, you know, with the COVID shutdowns and things like that through these programs. It's been a little more few and far between lately. I guess part of it's probably because it may have run its course through a lot of rosters, and you know, we have the vaccine and everything like that going on now. So hopefully we get on the back end of this thing and get back to some normalcy soon. But, you know, that was so unfortunate with the TCU game, and yeah, with A&M, you worry about that when you see the game before get postponed, right? As soon as it happened with Vanderbilt, started to worry. And I know that happened earlier in the season. Maybe it was the Vanderbilt game earlier in the season where they had to postpone their midweek, but we were still able to play. So you never know what's really going on. A lot of times you might get false positives and they have to retest or, you know, go back through contact tracing and stuff like that. And, unfortunately it didn't happen. But the good news is there is that window at the end of the season where this game could be made up. And I think it's going to be important because I don't know how they're going to seed teams. I know I've said this before, but for the SEC tournament, we're going to have some who play the full 18, some who might fall short with 16 or 17. You might have some teams who only play 13 league games. So how do you see them? So when I see that, in my opinion, you know, a team like Arkansas, you need to get as many of those games in as you can. So if you can make that game up against Texas A&M and, you know, hopefully win it at home as you should be favored to, well, that's going to help in the long run because as we can see from those standings, every win matters. Okay? Aside from Alabama, it seems like anybody can beat anybody else on a given night. So, you know, you can't take those wins against the teams at the bottom of the standings for granted. Hopefully they can make it up and get it done. Let's see. Jason L. Downing says they need to heal up. Yeah, they do. They do. We kind of went through the list there, but, you know, every team's banged up at this point in the season. Certainly. Every team's dealing with a little bit of fatigue also, and that's kind of part of the deal, but Arkansas's hit with it pretty hard. So, and with them, you know, the good thing is it's a lot of ankles and bruises and things like that. So things that where if you really can just take a couple days and do nothing, right, and then work yourself back into it, that you can get back to 100% pretty quick. Hopefully that's what you see. Like I said, I think it's going to help them in the long run, and they're going to be faster, more energetic, and maybe be able to just kind of crank things up a notch for these next couple weeks, which is going to be really important. Justin Williams says, I just want Arkansas to smash Kentucky. I mean Kentucky. Yeah, it's about time for that to happen, I think. You know, Arkansas's had some good teams, in the last couple of years that haven't been able to get it done, but this is definitely their best opportunity, and to go into Rupp Arena, even if it's not a full Rupp Arena, and get a win, even if it's not your vintage Kentucky team, it's still big. It matters. It means something to the state. It means something to the program. So I really hope that they are able to do that. You just hope that, that Kentucky doesn't figure it out in that game, right? It would almost be, you think about old Pinto, Hogs gonna hog, right? If they show up at Rupp Arena and all of a sudden Kentucky's like shades of their 2012 selves, hopefully that doesn't happen. They've got another game they have to play. They have to play Tennessee over the course of this weekend. So we'll see. We will definitely see what happens there at any rate. Ryan Horn, how does a kid get recognized? I know a kid that has 2,100 career points and doesn't have a single offer. I think taking that back even to the time I spent as a college coach and recruiter and then also as a scout, part of it's about where you're at. Okay, if it might be a smaller school or a more rural area where, the coverage isn't as great and scouts can't get out and see you as much, that could impact it to a degree. Does he play summer ball? Maybe get him on one of the circuits where you can get a little bit more exposure and evaluation. Put together some of those highlight tapes and start sending them out. All that stuff helps, but it can be tough. I mean, I grew up in McCrory, and if anybody knows where that is, right, it's a small town of about 1,800, and that's how I eventually got my opportunity to go up to Lindenwood. Kind of had to do my own work and send game film all over the place and pop off a bunch of emails to coaches and things like that, and eventually someone took the time to watch it, and then you get your chance. But I definitely know that can be frustrating sometimes. Drew McDaniel says, how do we match up versus Kentucky pace and game style wise? Good and bad. I think that there's kind of been a little bit of a stigma with Arkansas that they struggle with, physical or athletic teams. Kentucky has a little bit of that. I mean, they're going to be long and athletic, pretty stout defensively, but I think Arkansas is going to be able to score on this team. I really do. So I don't think it's, as much of I wouldn't call it a mismatch, but it's not going to play as big of a factor as maybe some of the other games that we've seen have. And then, I got to say, unless Kentucky goes on one of these games, like I said, where they think they're the 2012 version of themselves and they're hitting a bunch of threes and things like that, Arkansas should be able to lock them up pretty good defensively. They don't have a lot of perimeter shooting. I think they're still trying to kind of figure out who their go-to guy is and who their lead ball handlers are. So, might be able to hurt them a little bit with that trap and be tough in the half court defensively. Rebounding is going to be really important. That is a way that Kentucky generates a lot of points is by getting offensive rebounds and putbacks. So we have to box those guys out and be strong around the rim, and then take care of the basketball. Take care of the basketball. I can't turn it over and let a team that struggles to score get out in transition and get easy ones. But I do think they match up fairly well. Brandon Thibault says, Devo probably has a better mid-range game than Witt did and needs to be used more. Maybe. I think he's being used about as much as he can be the last few games. What did he play? 36 minutes or so the other night, which is really good to see. You almost had to have him out there. The man's energy is unreal. I've joked about it before, but even in a game against Mississippi State where it's just such a kind of a slowed down, grinded out pace, which is exactly what Mississippi State wanted early on, and Arkansas looked tired and sluggish. Devo was the exception, right? I mean, his energy level stays at a 10 or 11 every second that he's out there. And, he gives you a spark when he does those things. And his mid-range has looked good. I think they did made a nice adjustment of getting him involved in the middle of that zone at times against Oklahoma State. And he proved that he can knock down that shot. He's getting more comfortable with the floater. He's using the glass well on his drives. Would like to see him go to the right hand a little bit more. That's something he's going to have to develop, but has been really effective. Pleasant surprise. From a scoring standpoint, no doubt what he's been providing. I kind of thought as he started to carve out his role a little bit that it was just going to be rebounds, loose ball, steals, and defense, but he gives you a little scoring pop too. That's great. Back in the starting lineup, I think he'll probably start again next week. He looked really good. Show Rava says, whoop, whoop, rest week to get healthy. So clutch for these next 2 games. Yeah, I agree. It's big time. It's going to help them. You want to see a healthy Arkansas team down the stretch. No doubt about it. Okay. I think that just about covers it. As always, really appreciate everybody listening in today. Remember, again, go check us out at HawgSports.com. If you're on the fence, just go ahead and hop over it. Join us. You'll be happy you did it. Remember to throw us a like, rate, review, all those things. Certainly appreciate it. We will be back with you after the Kentucky game next week. That's definitely going to be an interesting show. I know it's something that Arkansas fans are passionate about. Hopefully the Hogs can go over there and get a win. Got the Super Bowl this weekend. I hit on last weekend's show. This is how in tuned I get to what's going on with the Arkansas Razorbacks. I mentioned the Super Bowl last week for their show. I didn't realize until like Thursday or Friday that it wasn't happening until the following week. So it shows you how much I've been able to follow the NFL. But the Super Bowl is this weekend. Whether you're for the Chiefs or the Bucks, should be able to enjoy that one, no doubt. But again, thanks for tuning in as always. We will definitely catch you next time. Should be on Wednesday. Thanks for listening in to Hog Hoops Live.